Hello guys. In the previous video, we were focusing on structures in C++. So from this video onwards, we are getting into the object-oriented programming world of C++, where we will start off with learning how to use classes, how to write classes, the different concepts of object-oriented programming, and so on. So things are going to get a bit more deeper in terms of C++ from this video onwards. So it's going to be a very interesting journey from here onwards. So let's get started. And the first thing that I will be covering in this particular video is the use of classes and how you can write classes, a very simple basic class. You can think of classes as an extended version or a much more effective version of the structure that you're seeing already here. So since we have already seen this particular example wherein we had a student structure and it had an ID and some name, and then we invoked the print function. I'm going to take the same concept or the same example over here and then show how we could have written the same thing in the form of a class. So let's get started. So the approach here is going to be from here onwards that we will be using something called as a header file that will be of the .h extension, and the implementation will continue to be in the CPP file. So header file is always for the declaration of the classes. You're kind of going to tell this is what the class is and this is what the members of the class are going to be. This is what it will contain, but the actual logic, the implementation logic of that will be in the CPP files. The reason for this is that whenever something that this class does has to be shared with some other sections of the code base, then it's sufficient to include just the header file, and you don't have to expose the entire implementation of it. So there are some concepts of the object-oriented programming, there are some concepts of the access specifiers and all those things that we are going to learn in the upcoming videos. But for now, just understand that we are going to have a bit of a different file structures here. We're going to have a header file where we are going to define the declare the class and tell what the class is going to look like, and then the implementation aspects of it, the definitions of it, is going to be in a CPP file. So with that being said, let me go ahead and create the header file that I'm talking about. So this is going to be the header file. .h is the extension that we will be using. One of the common things that is being followed whenever you write a header file is to include the first line as pragma once. What this means is as your code base increases, as it grows, there's going to be scenarios where this particular header file is going to be used in a lot of other header files or other implementations where it will be mentioned or where it will be kind of imported or included. So what happens in that scenario is that when you have a header file that includes another header file, and that header file in turn has included some other header files, we don't want a scenario where one particular header file and its contents gets included multiple times within the same file. So that will cause some conflicts over there. So what Pragma once tells is that any given header file and its contents has to be included only once and no repetitions. Another popular way of getting this done is something called as an include guards. That's also possible, wherein you kind of define something if it's not defined. I'm not going to go with that approach here, but it's just good for you to know that there is something called as an include guards as well that you can check about. With that being said, let's now get into the further contents of this header file. So what we're going to do here is similar to a structure. The keyword that we're going to use for a class is going to be class, and then we give a name to the class, and that's all. This is the bare minimal thing that you're seeing here. Um, One important thing to know when writing any particular class is that there is something called as an access specifier, and there are actually three access specifiers in C++. So what they mean, or what they are is the public, private, and protected. These are the three different access specifiers that you find within a class. So what this means is whatever members are present inside the class, to what extent are they visible or are they accessible to someone outside this particular class. So that can be controlled through these access specifiers. And by default, if you do not mention anything, it is going to be private. I am going to kind of explain these things to you um, as and when I go further in the coding. So don't worry too much about it. Just the focus in this video should be to know what are the things possible, what are the bare minimal things to be known. That's all. Okay. So the further understanding, the further use cases will be covered in the next upcoming videos. Okay. So as in the case of the structure, I'm going to have one of the fields called as ID, and another thing that we have was the print function. So that's all I'm going to do over here. So like I said earlier, in the header file, we are not going to write the exact logic. We are just going to tell this is what the class will contain. That's all. Okay. And now what we also need to do is there in the concept of the classes, there is something called as a constructor and a destructor. So what happens is any given class, it's kind of accessed or used by others by creating their instances, and those instances are called as objects in the C++ terminology. So whenever you want to access a particular class, you create its object and you access it. So when a particular class is instantiated or when an object is created, then by default in C++, one of the function gets invoked, and that function is called as a constructor. Okay, so that's the official term. It's called as a constructor. The beauty of constructor is that it has the same name as that of the class, so it will look something like this. So this is a constructor now. All right. And just to tell you what the significance of that is, if you want to declare a function, you by now know that you need to mention what the return type is, the name of the function, some parameters, and all those things. And if you just don't specify what the return type is, you can already see some errors over here. But if you declare something of the same name as that of the class and you do not even specify the return type, it still works. And that's the significance, or that's the kind of uniqueness of the constructor, that you don't have to explicitly invoke it. It is invoked directly whenever an instance or an object of a class is created, and it will always have the same name as that of the class. Now it can have parameters, and in this case I am in fact going to have an integer parameter, which I'll be calling as an ID value. So this is it that I'm going to specify in my header file. And now let's get into the CPP file and see what we can do here. Another thing that I'm going to do is I will be maintaining a separate main.cpp file. This will be like the entry point, and what is going to be there in the code CPP is only the this class specific related implementations. So what we're going to do is just whatever the code.h we have created, I'm going to include that particular code.h over here. And now whatever constructor or the functions we are going to define inside this particular class, all the definitions of that is going to be through the class name that you will have to specify. So the class name in this particular case would be that of a student, and now the name in itself is a construct. The constructor has the same name as that of the class, so that's why I'm specifying it. And we had told that there will be an parameter also for that particular constructor. One thing that you might want to know is that it's in a header file. When you declare, it's not necessary that you have to tell what the parameter name is. You can just tell what type of the parameter it is, and in during your definition you can specify. And even if you want to specify, it's okay, both are accepted. There is no difference in that. um, so yeah, uh, along with the constructor, we also have one more function that we called as print. I will be defining that as well. And the print actually has a return type, which is void in our case. And we also need a cout statement here where we will tell the ID of the student. The ID is, and the ID is going to be the ID. And yeah, let me close this. So now you see this error is that's because of few things here. Let me correct that. Um, Along with this include, we also have to bring in the IO stream, because that's where the cout and yeah, the cout is coming from. Okay, um, so it looks good so far. And the next thing that I would want to do is kind of initialize the ID, because if you see now in the class student, we have the member ID, and we are passing some integer value to the constructor. So but no one is initializing this particular ID. So the way to get that done is that inside this we can tell, okay, so whatever the value someone is going to pass during creating an object of this particular class, you just have to assign that to this particular ID. So this is one way of getting things done, but there is a better way that is called as an initializer list. So what we will do is just tell the ID's value is going to be that of what was passed to the ID value. That's all. This is another syntax, and this is what we will be following in the rest of our video. Um, so with that also being said, now we will get into the main.cpp file, and here all we need to do is include the .h file, and we don't have to include the cpp file. And we will define our entry point. That's the main function. And what I'm going to do now is this will be interesting. So I will be creating a student um, object which I will pass to. And what I will also be doing is I will invoke the print function of that particular class. So now something interesting is happening. There is an error. So let's see what that error is. So if I hover over this, it says the student constructor, which we thought that will be invoked during the creation of an object. And this is the way we create an object, to tell what the class name is, and then you provide an object name. And during the creation of the object, during this instantiation, the constructor gets invoked, and our constructor here is expecting an integer parameter, and that is why we are passing an integer over here. But the error says that this particular constructor to which you're passing this to is inaccessible, because whatever our class is, it is inside this code.h, and I'm accessing now that class by including this code.h somewhere outside. That is what I was talking about in terms of the access specifiers, that you need to be careful over here. By default, inside a class, all the members are private, which means that they are not accessible to anyone outside this particular class. So what we need to do is kind of tell some of the things which others will need. For example, the constructor. And okay, I think I did not copy. Uh, no problem, I can write it again. The constructor or the print statement, they need to be accessible. But if you think about it, we don't want to expose this data member ID, because others should not be able to modify the value of this, right? So anything they want to do with this particular ID, they need to access it via some other functions that we expose to them. So with these changes, now let's get back here, and now you see that the errors are gone, and that's all. And now for us to be able to compile, So what we are going to do is mention only the CPP files. Yeah, another important thing is um, usually the way to compile, the way to build, we need to have a proper approach. For example, a CMake approach. But maybe that's something that I'm going to bring in at a later point in this series of videos. But for now, this is the way we will be compiling, and when we execute, if we see the output as 2, our work is done. Yeah, that's all. So this is a very small and a beginning um, um, to the concept of classes in C++. It has good number of concepts, good number of things to learn, the best practices and all those aspects. So as we proceed further, we will be learning more and more, but this is how you can have a minimum class, and then have its definition over here, and then kind of invoke it. Okay, that's all in this video. For further concepts, let's meet in the next video.